Hey everybody, welcome back to another video, and this time I want to talk about one of my favorite new features in the recently released 2.9 update for our Helix and our HX Stomp, and that is the addition of gain reduction meters on our compressors. Now a lot of folks might question, why do I need that? What is that going to do for me? And that's what this video is going to attempt to answer, and I hope I explain this in a way that's clear and that can help you guys use this really powerful tool that we now have added to the Helix. This is something a lot of folks have been asking for a long time. So before I go into that, I have done many videos on compressors before, explaining what they do and how we can set them up and what the effects of certain things are with certain settings. But let's just do a quick recap for those who haven't been there before and haven't seen those or don't understand what a compressor does. Now, I guess to really simplify what a compressor does is a compressor is like an automatic volume control or gain control for whatever signal we're sending into it. You know, we could sit there as a mixer at a mixing board and turn a volume up and down as we need to, but that would be very laborious and maybe very difficult to do in time. So a compressor can be set to kind of accomplish this same thing, and we have various controls. We have threshold, the attack, the release, okay? And depending on how we set those, we're going to get different and varying amounts of compression and different behavior of compression. So the threshold basically is going to tell us at what point the compressor is going to start reducing the gain of the signal that we send into it, okay? We also have a ratio control. So, you know, they'll say 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 6 to 1, 10 to 1 possibly. So a compression ratio of 2 to 1 would tell us that for a signal, for every time a signal exceeds the threshold by 2 dB, it's going to be clamped down to just a 1 dB gain above that threshold. If we went above 8 dB, then it would be 4 dB above that threshold, if that makes sense. The attack is going to tell us how quickly the compressor does that gain reduction once the signal passes the threshold. And the release is going to do the opposite. Once the signal falls below the threshold, how quickly it's going to release that gain reduction, okay? So, what does a gain reduction meter do? Well, if we have the threshold, that's going to tell us at what point the compressor is going to attack our signal and clamp it down to however much we need it clamped down or desire it to be clamped down. But what we've been having to do in the Helix up until now is use our ears to know if it was the right amount of compression. Now, that's always a good thing to do. We do always want to use our ears, but it's also very nice to know how much gain reduction we're getting. How much is it reducing our signal? So we know if we're really hitting it hard or if we aren't. And then we can also set our makeup gain appropriately based off those findings. So our threshold is not only going to tell us when the compressor kicks in, but how much gain reduction we're going to get, along in conjunction with the other controls as well. So let's go over to HX Edit and take a look. And also, I have a separate camera, I got to be careful not to kick it, over here at my feet, which is on the screen of the Helix. Now, what you'll find is that in HX Edit, the new HX Edit, we don't have the meters on HX Edit. They're only on the actual unit itself. And let me just point to that down here so you guys can see it. It's right here above kind of the mix and level controls is where you'll see the meter moving once we get some audio going through this, all right? So here we have our threshold and our attack and our release. Now let me just set this up in a way that maybe I would normally set it up. I'll just go with a 5 millisecond attack and a 50 millisecond release. Keep the mix at 100. I'm going to bring the makeup gainer to level to 0, okay? And I'm going to bring our threshold all the way up, and I'll just put a compression ratio of, well, yeah, let's go 2 to 1 for now, okay? So, right now, if I grab my guitar and play something, this really should not have too much of an effect on the signal, whether it's on or off. If I turn it off, if anything, extremely subtle, as it should be, right? It's really not doing much. So simply putting a compressor block on, depending on the compressor block, unless it's designed to add a character of whatever it was modeling, which this may very well do, there could be a slight difference, but we'd have to listen very closely maybe. just putting the compressor block on doesn't necessarily mean we're getting compression, okay? We would want to see those meters moving, and as you can see when I'm playing, there's no movement of the gain reduction meters at all. Okay, so let's do this. Let's keep our settings as such, but now let's move our threshold down. I'm gonna move it to -20, and let's see if that gets any movement on those meters. Let me see if it's still not moving. Let's see if I hit very hard. Still nothing. So the effect of this should be if I turn the compressor off, little to no effect yet because the threshold is not set to a point where our signal is surpassing it, so the compressor's not doing anything. Let's move that down to, let's say, -30. Let's see what we got. Did you see the meter move finally? Watch. If I hit extremely lightly, nothing. So again, lightly, if I turn the compressor off, really not much going on. If I hit hard, we see that gain reduction move. Now we hear the compressor engaging. Okay, let's go down a little further here. Let's go to -40, so maybe this starts kicking in more regularly. So what you can see, and I hope you can read the numbers out, that first little line is saying -6, so 6 dB of gain reduction. Now, what's going to happen now is if I have 6 dB of gain reduction, and I turn the compressor off, this signal is going to sound a lot louder. Because the compressor is squashing it. So what I could do is come to my makeup gain now and say, let's move this up about 5 or 6 dB. Let's go about 5 and change. Do you see how our volume levels on versus off with the compressor are set to be about the same now? Because the compressor is reducing the gain by 5 to 6 dB based off our settings, and we're bringing back after those settings 5 or so dB, 5 to 6 dB of gain, and it's going to be the same on or off. So now we can hear what, the same volume level on or off, sorry, and now we can hear what the compressor is actually doing rather than just hearing a differential in volume jump, which, as I've said before, is so important when we're comparing two sounds. The volumes have to be matched or we're not hearing what the difference is or what the effect is doing to it. So that's with it off, with it on. Now I want you to watch something. I'm going to hit it and watch how fast that meter goes back down. See how it just, as soon as I stop the signal, it falls right off. Let me move the release way up to 2.5 seconds. Now watch that meter. So now it's showing that the signal is taking much longer. In this case, what it's telling us is 2.5 seconds to fully release that signal. So that's shown in our gain reduction meter, right? Again, if I go back to 50 milliseconds, it pretty much releases right away. What about with the attack? If I put the attack up to 200 milliseconds, notice we're getting much less gain reduction because it's allowing the signal to pass that threshold and not clamping it down right away. So we get less compression that way. We also let the transients or the initial, maybe audio peak or spike of our pick hitting the strings through. Notice it's not even working there, so I might have to bring my threshold way down. So that's letting the peak through. Now if I move that down back to say 0.1 milliseconds, see how it cuts off the attack, the pick attack? Move that attack up. We're still getting compression, but it's not on the initial attack of the note, but later. And that affects how much gain reduction we're going to get as well. I always kind of set my compressors around 10 milliseconds and release between 50 and 100 usually. But now I have my threshold way up there, so I'm going to go back down to 40. without the compressor. With it. That type of thing is going to sit better in a mix because it doesn't have those little transient spikes poking out, right? I could, you know, again, if I move this down to the fastest attack, you're going to hear a difference again. Listen to how the pick attack almost disappears. Versus even, let's say, 10 milliseconds. Right? Is that all clear? It's kind of interesting how these all kind of interact, right? But now, one thing we can use this for is to decide how deep our compression wants to go. You know, I could take this threshold way down and see what we get. We're getting almost like 17 dB of gain reduction right away. So if we bump this up, let's say about 16 to 17 dB. Compressor off. Back on. Off. This tone with it off is much more lively to play through because I'm not having all my dynamics sucked out of it. Watch what happens with the compressor on at this level of compression. No matter how softly I pick, everything kind of stays at the same level. Now I'll pick hard. It takes away my dynamics, the ability to have super loud or super soft, and kind of squashes it all down. With the compressor off, when I do, that's much more drastic. Compressor on. Believe it or not, I'm hitting the same velocity, the same hard, same level of pick attack here. Compressor off. I'm hitting about as soft as I can there. Even though the volumes are fairly matched. So that's what the compressor is doing, but we can now see that visually, right? Huge amount of gain reduction. So one of my favorite ways to set a compressor up would be like this. Let's take our gain back to 0. Let's bring our threshold up to only a level where on our hardest hits, it's going to get the compressor to control the level. Okay, so it's going to be mostly transparent so that I can play soft, I can play hard, and I can get most of my dynamics into my playing, let my playing breathe to be able to control the sound. I don't necessarily want to know that when I pick soft and when I pick hard, there's no difference or very little difference. I don't want that. I want to be able to control the dynamics in my playing. So if I desire to I don't want that with the compressor on at these ridiculous settings doing this. So no matter how hard or how soft I pick, it's the same volume. I may want something like that if I was playing some real funk stuff. Whereas if the compressor was off, that's going to sit in a mix really nice because there's no peaks coming out. Okay, so like I was saying, one of my favorite ways to set a compressor, and let me go back to 0 with this again. Sorry for getting off there on a tangent. Let's go to -24 and let's just sort of see when I hit really hard what the gain reductions meters do. Barely moving. Let's go a little bit more than that. Let's go to say -30. I'm going to go just a little less compression than that, -28. Do you notice there, and let's go -29, somewhere just in between. Even, you know what, let's just go to -30, just for it's a little more of an effect here. What that's doing is only on the most extreme volume hits that I make is it clamping a little bit down, and only a little bit, maybe 2-3 dB, right? Maybe it spikes up to 6 dB at some times, but for the most part there's almost no gain reduction all the time, but only when needed. So again, if I'm recording or playing, that's going to help if I hit something like, for that to not kind of poke above the mix, but when I do this, it's not going to affect the dynamics of my playing. That's one of my favorite ways to set a compressor. You can also set it just, you know, even a little bit lower so that it's going to kick in all the time, but just subtly. So that's a compressor setting I wouldn't mind too much. That's going to give us just a little bit of squash. Now, again, having it turned on or off, we may have... Notice how the gain has come down a little bit because it's squashing on certain hits. So I might want to come in here and maybe add in, I don't know, 2 dB of gain reduction, or yeah, sorry, of makeup gain. So that the gain levels are roughly the same with whether it's on and off, if we want to maybe have it as an effect pedal on a stomp board or something like that. But we'll hear just the effects of the compression. Kind of controlling things. Does that make any sense? I hope I was clear with that. You know, it's one of those things that a lot of people have a hard time getting their head around the explanation of what a compressor does. And I apologize if the video down there, it's my cell phone I'm using to record on the screen. I hope it was clear and I'll know after the fact when I start editing this. But I think it'll be good enough to at least see what's going on with the gain reduction meter. So that's one of my favorite new features in 2.9. I think for people to understand how it's used properly and how, in conjunction with the other controls on the compressor, is an important thing. And it can really help a lot of folks dial in their compressors in a much more usable way. So I hope that helped you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I was clear in how I explained things. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use out of it. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the little notification bell so that you get notified when I put new videos out. And again, thank you guys for all the support. I hope that helped, and thanks for your time and tuning in. Hope everybody's well out there. We'll talk to you very soon. Ciao for now.